Hey, so Polyend has released a new update for the Tracker Mini 2.0. Like, we've got new synthesizers, we've got new MIDI channels and patterns, and it's really opened up the device. So today I just wanted to highlight those new features, what they've done on this machine, but also some of my findings over the last 8 months having this machine and just how it's been used because it's so portable. It's lived in my backpack and it's literally the thing I always go to because it's at my side, and being so short notice I can make a song in a couple of minutes. So I wanted to highlight that and talk about some of the good things. So let's get straight into it. Alright, we're here with the Polyend Tracker Mini, and just before we start anything, if you're looking to install the firmware, just make sure that you take the SD card out, put the files in the correct folder, so that's the firmware folder, shift 4, or you go into the menu here, and then you want to go firmware, and just make sure that you do the firmware update. So when you select it, just pick the one up the top and that will install it. Don't let it turn off and you should be fine. And now we've got 2.0. But this one, I really want to cover some of those cool new features that we've got with this update, but also I've had this about 8 or 9 months now, and I was going to wait until like that 12-month review time, but for me this has been the synthesizer or groovebox or like handheld music device that's been with me the most. Like, it lives in my backpack. It's going to be going with me on a plane very soon in a couple of hours, but really, like, just having something like this by your side has been such a godsend. And with those new updates, like, it's really just doubled or tripled like the stuff I can do with this thing. So I just wanted to highlight first, like, this is sort of like how I've been traveling with it, so the case that comes with it, as well as I've got this little tiny case that came with my in-ear monitors. So I do like having like nice Audio-Technica big earmuff ones, but sometimes when you're like moving around to that, something really small that helps. Some way to connect it to a bigger thing. Keeping a USB around, that's going to come in a little bit apparent later. Keep backups of my projects on here, as well as if I need to get into the SD card that was for version 1.1, that can live in there, because really they've done an update to the USB functionality that just makes it so much easier to work with. So with all that said, I'll just move all that to the side and we'll focus on the main thing. So first off, you probably know with the Tracker Mini, if you hold one, you can go into this mode here, double tap and it'll put you back into the, like, so you can see everything. But it did have 8 sample tracks before, but now we have 16 tracks and we can have a whole bunch more data in here. So these ones are specifically for MIDI, as well as the new instruments, which we'll touch on a little bit further. But I just made this little thing just to show off what we can do with something. So I'm just going to mute these first groups on the sample side and bring this one in. So same thing again, like, we've got all the functionality of the original tracker, but now that we've got the 16 steps, we can really expand out our patterns. Now, one of the concerns that I had was, would these synth engines only work over here? Because you probably notice when I have to like turn something off on the tracker, I have to go over to the tracks, and when I'm turning off the MIDI, I have to hold that so I can get those mute groups. But these synth engines do work in the tracker side, so you can have most of your information in those original 8 tracks. If you're doing something a little bit more complicated, or having this machine connect to devices outside of the tracker, there are ways to do it, and really that just comes down to your workflow. So I'm finding that having the full 16 steps opens me up to do a lot more. And with the Tracker Mini, like, I do have the Tracker Plus just up there, doing a little bit of talking about that in the future, but with the Tracker Mini I can take everything I want on the go. So enough about the pattern stuff. I want to talk a little bit about the synth engines as well, because that is probably the biggest thing for me, because I really enjoy a sampler, but I've come from chiptune, so having access to sound engines on this thing really makes it so much more. So if we just go like that, this is the new synth area engine. So I did talk a little bit when I was talking about the Tracker Plus, but all that functionality has come across to the Tracker Mini. There's a little bit of extra steps because we don't have that sort of button grid to work with, but we do have 5 new synth engines, which I thought I'd just cover briefly. So we have our Acid Synth, and this one is like the 303 clone. It does a really nice job of making some bass lines as well as some mono machine stuff. So if I was just come back into pattern, like I used it to create this bass line here, maybe bring in some drums. So we can create that sort of acid baseline, and it does have a lot of functionality under the hood, but we'll continue on. So the fat is sort of like a dual oscillator, like mono machine of yesteryear. You can create some like D-tunes and some really fat sounds. Comes with a name. VAT, which is our virtual analog synth. So this is like your chords and keys, so like your Junos and all that sort of stuff. We can create those sounds on there. We have a wavetable FM, so WTFM, which is probably my favorite synth I've been playing with. It's a 2-pole operator FM synth, but it's based the oscillators off wavetable. So you get sort of like this gritty style, like toy, like Porter Sound Studio sort of sounds out of that machine. And I really enjoy that one. And the last one that recently came out is the percussion synth. And we did hear that before just here. If I just unmute these. And this is our drum synthesizer. So it's interesting how these are implemented, but the more I play with it, because previously, like if I go to chiptunes, like each instrument slot, so if I just go into here, typically you would have sound engines in each slot. However, this one works by having 3 synth engine presets that you pick from. So this might sound a little bit weird, but I sort of treat it like a way of like, I have these sort of synth modules at hand. That is all embedded in the device, and I can take that wherever I want. So it's like I have 3 synthesizers, virtual synthesizers I can connect to, and then I can control them in a very different way. But instead of just talking about, I still want to show what's under the hood as well. So if I just pick the wavetable FM, because there's some nice stuff going on there, and I go to edit patch. This is all the area that we have to control. So originally when the synths were on the Polyend Plus, you had this little tiny screen that you had to navigate through, and then the Tracker Plus really did the UX and made these a lot more able to control and manipulate. And they brought it really nicely onto the Tracker Mini as well. So you can scroll around by using this. You use the center button to select, and then you can also use the up and down arrow keys when you select something. If you want to go back to this menu, just hit right. You can select another part, and that goes back in here. And then you can use this to control the sound that you want to play with. So I've been able to create a few different synths using this way of controlling it. And I will say it's pretty equivalent to the Tracker Plus, like instead of using the scroll wheel as well as just moving around. I really enjoy it. And on the synthesizers themselves, they're quite large for what they are. Like a 2-pole FM, like FM itself is such an interesting synthesis method, but if you have a look over here, like it does do things like it has ratios, so it's not like you're going to hit those sort of bad sounds. You've got like different ways to shape the sound. That's sort of scrolling through the wavetable, like you can change how they play with each other, the feedback system, and I think they go up to 3 times, so it's like you get some really buzzy sounds and a bunch of other features. And this is throughout the thing, so you can add a filter on top, which is something I really enjoyed about my Digitone, is like you create the FM sound, then you can like mute it back. But we have a whole bunch of different based filters that we can control it with. Amplify envelope, we can create different envelopes to control different elements. So we've got 2 of those, we've got 2 LFOs, we've got a modulation matrix, so we can route everything around. It might look a little bit crazy, but when you start making sounds, it's like, oh, I want to modulate this with that element there. And it's quite easy to come through here and find out what goes where. And like you can control the actual voice off its gliding and all that sort of stuff. But when you only have one machine, like it can do one sound, and with trackers you like flicking between the different sounds, this is where these macros come in. So we can create controllable points inside the synthesizer. As we can see, we can control a variety of different elements at once with one controller. So we can have this synthesizer build up and then create all these macros to control different elements of the sound. So instead of just having one synthesizer, we've got a variety of different sounds when we start playing with these macros. And you can control that by coming or going into the second part of this menu, come back, go in here. And then you can see we've got the macros set up. And you can control these live by coming in here. You can also use these buttons here, but you can also come into this part and use a FM command. So if I go through, and I think they're down the bottom, there they are. So the way that you control the MIDI macros that you send out CC, you can use macros here as well. So if I want to control the first one, if I was in record mode, I can start controlling it like that. And just with those 3 synths, like you can create a full little thing as well, like I'm just mucking around making some stuff just to show off some of the functionality, but that's just with those 3 synthesizers, and we get the full sampler on top. So like I've got some like NES sounds. So I went into the garage and just hit a bunch of things, and also I'm finding this being a really good pseudo field recorder. Like I've got my field recorder over here to help me make this video, but if I just need something in a pinch, I can actually just pull this out and just get a recording. So this was me just sitting in the park and there were some birds playing around in the background, and like just having something like a microphone on hand, I'm noticing I'm able to capture sounds that are interesting in real time, instead of feeling like I have to go out on a field trip and like have all my audio gear with me and spend like a half a day going out capturing a whole bunch of sounds, bringing them back and processing them. I'm noticing I'm bringing that into my workflow, so it's like, oh, that's a really interesting sound. Then I can just go, oh, look, I've got my sample recorder, turn on the mic, start capturing audio, capture the sound, okay, cool, do my edits, bring it into a project and start layering different elements, bringing in samples I've already caught, and then applying those synthesizers. It's like I can just make music on the fly. Even if I have 15 minutes, it's like I can just really just sit down and just start making something. So this is one thing that I'm really enjoying about the Tracker Mini, is like, I will say I'm very time poor doing YouTube videos and like the rest of the stuff I do in life. You don't have much time to be able to get something down on paper. And when you can just turn on a device and just start making the thing, so music, having a music device that can do that, within those 15 minutes you could have a full track, you could have a little loop like this and save it off and like, hey, I'll go check that out later. Even if it's like something that you'll probably not touch again, just being able to get that little bit of time in making music is such a difference to just being able to do this sort of stuff. So one thing I really enjoy about the Tracker Mini. So just with those 2 changes, I think this has just made the device so much more powerful. Like you can work with any sort of workflow that you enjoy. So if you're just like sample based, or if you want synthesizers music, or like just going out and recording samples and mangling them up in the device, it's such a portable way to be able to make music the way that you want. And one thing I didn't say, which I've got highlighted here, those synthesizers, if you're like, oh, I really enjoy this sound, but I need another synthesizer in the background, you can actually render them out to samples. So it's not like you're limited to like 3 synth sounds. You can do a bit of processing to be able to have multiple different sound engines as well. Another thing I didn't highlight when I was in the synthesizer parameter, so I just need to go back there. You can load patches as well as save patches. So if I bring that up, there's a variety that you get already, and that's probably one thing I enjoy about Polyend, is when they release a device, it's like a whole bunch of patches as well as a whole bunch of samples to get you underway. But you can also, like, say I did a little bit of work and I wanted to save that out. Coming in here, I can actually save those patches as well. And there is a nice little bit of that sort of under the hood niceties. Like if I come over to the mastering page, we can have control of our synths here, as well as our delay signals as well, alongside the main mix as well. So we can do a little bit of mixing before we release our song, or if we're just going to render it from the device itself. So just a lot of nice little changes too. Probably like one of my favorite ones is we can actually put names into our pattern, so we can identify this is the introduction, this is our build up phase and all that. And you can come into here, and coming into the third name, you can give it a pattern name here, save, and we go back to song mode. We can see that it's already been named. So just a whole bunch of nice things to just make the process a lot more streamlined and helpful. And with all those nice things, I think they've done some really nice stuff with the USB functionality on this one. So if I just go over to Shift 4, as you can see, we have USB. So what we can do is when we plug this into the computer and activate it, it'll go into USB storage mode. So instead of like having to rely on that little USB that I have, I've also got an SD card reader with my thing. So you got to unplug it, put it into the computer, put the files on there, put the SD card back in, turn it on. This is a really quick way to like transfer files around. So when I'm doing like, say I've recorded a bunch of samples and I want to put it on my computer, or I've saved out a bunch of projects and I want to back them up, just coming into this mode and just pushing it straight to the computer, I'm finding that really handy as well. But also with the USB functionality, my computer's probably not set up the way it should be for audio over USB, but you can actually have it so it's doing the sound as well. So if you've got all these channels laid out and you want to do a little bit more processing besides what's here in this menu here, you can actually record live out and have each channel separate as a stereo track. So you can have all the audio playing at once, you record your song, and then you have everything laid out in your DAW of choice and you can start editing it. So that's probably something I want to look more into in the future, but for now I'm really enjoying just being able to move things through just USB. So they're all the major new features for the Tracker Mini, and if you haven't yet, I definitely would recommend installing that firmware. It does open up a world of possibilities with this machine, especially those synth engines. Like, there's something else, and really I'm thinking about doing a video for each one just to show how they work and like give a bit of guidance on like how to get the most out of those zones. So if you're interested in that, please tell me in the comments below. And also, like, if you're looking for more review content about the Tracker Mini, I will link my original Tracker video down below because I sort of cover a lot of the features in that one. And my view hasn't really changed because it has been that machine that has been with me the most. And like with cameras or any other device, it's the thing that you use is going to be the way that you do it. So with music making, having something that does like 90% there, it doesn't matter if it does 100%, but if you're using it every day, you're going to be making music. And with such a small footprint, like it lives in my backpack and comes to work, like it's going with me for a holiday, so you might see some stuff from that. But really, it's just been that machine that I've always gone back to. And I probably will do a comparison video between the Tracker Mini and the Tracker Plus, because those two are interlinked now, and you can transfer projects from here onto the Tracker Mini with 2.0. I probably need to do a little bit more work with seeing if the Tracker Mini is backwards compatible with the original Tracker. I don't think the MIDI channels will come back with it. And with the original Tracker, I might wait until the new firmware pops up for that, because they've talked about there's 4 new MIDI channels for that. So I'll see if it's backwards compatible with that project. But really, like, this is a nice thing to have. So I hope that's given you a bit of food for thought, because Polyend has put a lot of love into this machine and it's definitely worth updating, so go do that. But really, this video was just a highlight. There is a lot of stuff going on with this machine, and I do want to create some videos highlighting some of those new features independently, but also some of the ways I've been using the Tracker Mini, because I always reference cameras and photography, but they do have a concept of like the best picture or the best camera that you can have is the one that's with you. And like the Tracker Mini is so portable and so useful for me, like just being able to spend 15 minutes making a track, and like over time that equals up to a lot more. So it has opened up a lot of possibilities for music making for me, and I just want to highlight that a little bit more here. So if you enjoyed this one, definitely give it a thumbs up. It does tell the algorithm to point this to other people that probably need to install some firmware. And also, if you do have any comments or queries, please feel free to leave them down below. I do try and go there and answer things, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to test out with the new firmware update with all the other Polyend devices. So if you got any questions, please feel free to ask. And in the end, if you do enjoy the Tracker Mini or you're looking for more content, I do have a channel that does support trackers and a whole bunch of Polyend content. So if you're looking for that, I look forward to seeing you next time.